This morning, a car packed with explosives blew up in southern Baghdad, killing at least 48 people in the third suicide attack in the Iraqi capital in just 3 days. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the barrage of bombings, which the group has been stepping up after being dislodged from its Iraqi strongholds, particularly their grand prize, Mosul, where Iraqi coalition forces recently liberated the eastern half of the city. An ISIS suicide bomb killed 14 people and wounded 30 in East Mosul last Friday, shattering the sense of security that had been building. But even faced with that constant threat, residents there are determined to resume their lives. While under ISIS control, more than 1 million residents, including 600,000 children, effectively became prisoners. Mosul's schools were either closed or forced to teach an ISIS-approved curriculum. More than 30 schools have now reopened, and another 40 are expected to open in coming weeks.
نبارك لكم عودتكم إلى المدارس. إن شاء الله متأملين خيرا لمستقبل أفضل. ونقول سأدرس، سأنجح، سأتفوق. أسمعكم؟ سأدرس، سأنجح، سأتفوق.
Mrs. Huda was a teacher in Mosul when ISIS took over. She is gradually putting her class back together. Although ISIS kept the school open, their actions meant that many of the students stopped coming. Many barely even left their homes.
Can you describe what it's been like for the last 2.5 years?
رجعنا إلى 100 سنة سابقة وأهم شيء مستقبل آلاف الأطفال.
والله يعني أول سنة من دخلوا يعني كانت حياة عادي يعني جو باسم الدين لأنه يعني بعدين لا يعني آخر فترة خاصة يعني لا والله يعني كثير صعبة خاصة.
When you say things became harder, what do you mean? What happened?
قتل على أبسط الأشياء.
The Dijlah Elementary School for Girls, also in the Mosul neighbourhood of Al-Zuhur, is another school reopening in the city. It used to have 260 students, but with many of the other schools destroyed, over 400 have arrived at their gates since eastern Mosul was officially liberated. Students of all grades are eager to return to their studies after almost 3 years of conflict and occupation. In June 2014, when ISIS stormed the city, life continued relatively normally for those trapped inside. But gradually, harsh new rules were strictly enforced. During the occupation, many teachers were forced to work against their will.
كان بالبداية احنا ما بدنا نداوم الحقيقة، قاطعنا المدارس، بعدين أعلنوا بالجوامع إنه تبليغ لكافة المعلمات لازم يداومون، واللي ما تداوم يعلقوها يشنقوها على باب المدرسة.
ISIS created and printed their own curriculum and forced students and teachers to follow it. A radical interpretation of Islamic law, strategic geography and biographies of ISIS leaders replaced traditional classes on history, literature, music and art.
المنهج أسود وأبيض وكله رعب كله تشوف قندهاري كله أشياء هذه يعني المنهج ما نتم بالنسبة لنا غير مقبول كان لأن يحث على الجهاد يحث على القتل والذبح والسلب. شوف المنهج يكتب بالرياضيات طلقة مسدس.
والله أول ما فاتوا داعش كنا حيل خايفين منهم لأن هم قبل كانوا موجودين باسمهم القاعدة. يقولون مثلا أنت ليش ما تجي تقاتل في سبيل الله وأنت ليش تروح على اليونان وأنت ليش تروح على ألمانيا. ظلوا بالعراق وقاتلوا في سبيل الله.
They also enforced military training with lessons on weapons and urban fighting. In addition to returning to Iraq's national curriculum, Mosul's teachers will also need to provide psychological support to a generation exposed to the horrors of life under ISIS.
أقول لك هي بصراحة يعني أثروا من طريقة اللباس وحمل الرشاشة وعلامات القوة والبطولة. فكثير صارت مشاكل بالبيوت. الشاب يريد يروح ينتمي أمه وأبوه ما يوافقون، الأب يتبرى من ابنه.
لأن إحنا هنا الموصل كوي عاداتهم وتقاليدهم ومعرفتهم من العلم ما قليلة. إن شاء الله ما نخلي قصر على التلميذ.
But much of Mosul's infrastructure is in tatters. The school's administration is attempting to source books, stationery, and the money for teachers' salaries. Elsewhere, some of Mosul's rich heritage is beyond repair.
This was the central library of the University of Mosul, the largest one here. It It was filled with many books, scientific books, historical books.
In February 2015, ISIS fighters stormed the University of Mosul's library, burning over 8,000 books and 112,000 ancient manuscripts. The library, established in 1921 as a symbol of the birth of a modern Iraq, was also set on fire.
When ISIS came, they did nothing to the place. After a while, the radical thought became clearer. They took all belongings of this library, took it outside, then they burned it in front of the students and the academics and the teachers. But no one...
They forced everybody to watch?
Yeah.
Moyad Amir Saeed was a teacher in Mosul before ISIS took over. After months living under their rule, he fled the city with his young family.
They destroyed our heritage.
Is there a single book left?
Yeah, there's one, I think. The only survivor is outside.
Oh, the one we saw coming in. There's
Yeah.
literally one book survived.
Yeah. Sole survivor.